Welcome back to Digital Rage. I am Jeff, the producer here at Byer Company. Today we have the Byer-Nichols cybersecurity brief for the second half of August, and the top story is PromptLock, a malware that uses generative AI to analyze files on a victim's system to attack vulnerabilities. Also, more attacks are targeting Linux and macOS, systems that traditionally were rarely targeted. So let's get into the details.
Welcome to the deep dive.
You know, in today's world, there's just so much information flying around, especially in cybersecurity, right? It changes so fast. Keeping up feels, well, honestly, it feels like trying to drink from a fire hose sometimes. So our mission today, we want to give you a bit of a shortcut. We've dug into the Byer-Nichols threat brief 08202502. It's pretty dense stuff, and then we've pulled out what we think are the most crucial bits, the insights you actually need. The goal here is to get you up to speed, maybe show you a few surprising things without burying you in technical jargon.
Exactly. And this brief, it's specific. It covers cybersecurity data just from August 15th to the 31st, 2025. So it's a really fresh snapshot of what's happening now. We're talking emerging malware, who's getting targeted, industries, countries, you name it. We'll connect the dots for you, look for patterns, and really talk about what it all means for your defenses. Okay, let's unpack this then. Straight into one of the biggest things in the executive summary, this emergence of malware that actually uses generative AI. Specifically, the brief calls out PromptLock. ESET found this one recently. And it's not just another piece of malware. It feels like a real shift.
Yeah, PromptLock uses Gen AI, like on the victim system.
Right.
It analyzes files, then it makes these intelligent decisions. Should I encrypt this for ransomware or maybe steal it? I mean, think about that. It's way beyond the static stuff we're used to. It can figure out what you value.
What's truly striking here is that adaptive nature. It's dynamic. This isn't just, throwing a fixed script at a wall and seeing what sticks. PromptLock analyzing and then deciding. That completely shifts the defensive game. We have to move from just reacting to known bad files, those signatures,
Right.
to actually anticipating attacks that are context-aware, that adapt on the fly. It really demands a more proactive, almost intelligent defense from our side, too. That's a huge shift. Doesn't mean our traditional defenses, like signature-based detection, they just done. Obsolete.
Well, not entirely obsolete. I wouldn't say that. They still catch the easier stuff, the known threats. But for things like PromptLock, yeah, our focus has got to shift. More toward behavioral analysis, using AI ourselves for anomaly detection, getting real-time threat intel. It's becoming more about understanding the intent and the context, not just recognizing a known piece of code.
Okay, so AI threats are one big thing. But it's not the only shift, right? The brief also highlights this broader attack surface, specifically more malware hitting macOS and Linux. The report says fully half of the trending malware variants in this period targeted those platforms. Well, that's a big number. It challenges some old assumptions, doesn't it?
It really does. And it raises an important question, especially for anyone maybe feeling a bit safer on a Mac or Linux machine. For a long time, the perception was, oh, they're less vulnerable, or at least less targeted by the big campaigns. But this data, it's a firm reminder. You need solid endpoint protection, good detection capabilities, no matter what OS you're running. Windows, Mac, Linux, doesn't matter. That idea of security through obscurity, it's definitely gone. If you're on Apple or Linux, you're absolutely a target now.
Okay, so we understand the threats are evolving, becoming smarter, hitting more platforms. But let's follow the money. Where's the impact really felt? Let's look at the top ransomware groups active in late August. So Qilin is still up there, 20% share, pretty dominant. But Acure is climbing fast, over 14%. And Shinobi, too, around 7%. The brief mentions Acure is getting traction with these more sophisticated supply chain attacks. Makes it harder to trace. And then you've got Warlock. They only showed up publicly in June 2025. But they quickly made a mark by going after just one thing. Unpatched Microsoft SharePoint servers. Very specific.
Yeah, and that's crucial, isn't it? The rise of newer groups like Warlock, focusing laser-like on specific vulnerabilities. It just highlights this constant cat-and-mouse game. They are actively scanning for known weaknesses. If you haven't patched that SharePoint server, you're basically putting out a welcome mat for these agile new groups. It's not just about what ransomware exists, but how they're finding their way in. Unpatched systems are key.
So who's getting hit by these groups? Let's look at the victim sector. Big changes here. Manufacturing actually jumped to number one, over 16%. And financial services right behind it, also over 16%. Yeah. They've moved up to, these are often critical sectors right now, top targets.
Absolutely. And construction, retail, they slipped down a bit. Technology stayed at number 5.
And location-wise, the USA is still the main target, way out in front at nearly 60%.
Yeah. Followed by the UK and Germany, much smaller percentages, though.
But here's the stat that really jumped out at me. Victim organization size. Get this. A massive 84.25% of victims are small businesses, defined as 500 employees or fewer. 84%. That's overwhelming.
It really is overwhelming and incredibly insightful. Why target SMBs so heavily? Well, several possibilities, right? Maybe they're seen as having weaker defenses, perhaps less budget for dedicated security teams, Or, and this is key, they could just be an easier way into the supply chain of larger companies they work with. Whatever the reason, that stat just hammers home. Cybersecurity is not just a big company problem anymore. If you're a small business, you are absolutely a high-value target, period.
Okay, so beyond ransomware, the brief also digs into specific adversary groups. The more sophisticated actors, let's zoom in on one example of suspected nation-state activity, APT-36, believed to be a Pakistani cyber espionage group, and their target, Indian defense personnel. The brief describes this really clever phishing campaign they ran. They send emails with malicious PDFs, okay, standard enough, but the PDF has this blurred background and a button made to look exactly like the login for India's National Informatics Center, the NIC.
Which is like the main government IT body there, handling critical stuff.
Exactly. So if the target clicks that button, boom, redirected to a URL. Downloads a ZIP file pretending to be a legit app. But the real goal? Steal credentials, get persistence in defense networks.
It just shows the level of craft, doesn't it? And the social engineering involved. It's not just about code, it's about deception. Making something look incredibly real to trick someone really underscores how vital critical thinking is when you get any email, especially official-looking ones. And, just to be clear, like the brief, we're focusing on the methods here. The TTPs, tactics, techniques, procedures. We're reporting impartially on how these attacks work, not getting into the geopolitics behind them.
Right. And the brief also quickly mentions Salt Typhoon and Silk Typhoon, both suspected nation-state espionage groups, potentially linked to China's Ministry of State Security, the MSS.
Yeah, and it connects back to what the brief notes, how these cyber activities often mirror real-world tensions and rivalries. These examples just highlight how persistent and targeted espionage campaigns are, and the need for incredibly high security awareness, especially in government, defense, that kind of sensitive sector. These groups don't give up.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. To the technical side, the weaknesses attackers are actually using. Because the brief flags a particularly high number of trending and actively exploited vulnerabilities, CVEs, during this period, it's a good reminder that old flaws, they don't just disappear. Attackers love them.
Still finding gold in those old hills, huh?
Totally. Like we're still seeing old dealing vulnerabilities exploited, remote code execution, stuff like that. Things from years ago, but still hitting devices that never got patched. More recently, though, vulnerabilities in Fortinet, FortiSIEM, Microsoft Exchange, big enterprise systems.
Yeah, compromising those can give attackers wide access across a network. Serious stuff.
But the brief highlights 3 Citrix flaws as being of particular concern. 2 are from 2024, 1 from 2025. And then there's this one, CDE 2025-43300. It's an out-of-bounds write issue. Basically, letting an attacker write data where they shouldn't, potentially running code. And it impacts iOS, iPadOS, and macOS, broad Apple impact. Apple themselves apparently think it may have been exploited in a sophisticated attack against specifically targeted individuals.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty serious warning for Apple users. Even those lockdown systems aren't impenetrable. So what's the big takeaway from all this vulnerability talk? It just reinforces, yet again, how absolutely critical it is to keep everything patched and updated. Your servers, your laptops, yeah, but also your phones, your tablets, everything. The fact that vulnerabilities from 2020 are still actively used, it shows the scale of the patching challenge. Attackers will always take the easiest path in, and an unpatched system is practically an open door.
Definitely. And moving from the flaws to the actual malicious code, the brief also lists several trending malware families, new ones, and some making a comeback, a real mix.
A rogues gallery, you might say.
Yeah, like EDR Kill Shifter. This is nasty. It's an evolution of some ransom hub malware built specifically to disable endpoint detection and response tools. Basically trying to blind your security systems so it can operate freely.
Sneaky. Turning off the cameras before the robbery.
Exactly. Then there's Plague. This one targets Linux. It disguises itself as a PAM module pluggable authentication module that's deep in the Linux authentication system.
Wow, embedding itself in the login process. That makes it incredibly hard to spot, let alone remove.
For sure. And remember the XE backdoor scare?
Oh yeah, the supply chain nightmare.
Well, it's resurfaced. Researchers found dozens of Docker Hub container images, like pre-built software packages, that had infected versions of the XC-utils compression tool baked right in.
Ugh. So developers could be pulling down these images and unknowingly compromising their own systems or applications. What's really striking across all these examples, though, is the sheer diversity. You've got ransomware, sophisticated evasion tools like EDR kill shifter, deep backdoors like Plague on Linux, espionage tools, mobile malware like SparkKitty mentioned in the brief, supply chain threats like XZ. It hits everything from servers to phones to development environments. It just paints a picture of a really complex, multifaceted threat landscape, not just one type of enemy.
Absolutely. Okay, so to round things out, let's quickly touch on some of the top news headlines the brief summarized. These give us that wider context of what's happening in the cyber world.
Yeah, the bigger picture stuff.
Right, so things like critical zero-day bugs found in CyberArk and HashiCorp password vaults, that's huge for enterprise security. Keys to the kingdom stuff.
Definitely concerning.
On the flip side, some good news. Over $300 million in cybercrime crypto seized by law enforcement. A significant win.
Nice to see some claws taking back illicit gains.
And then this potentially game-changing discovery. A new shade BIOS technique. The report says it beats every kind of security.
Whoa, okay, that sounds fundamental. A hardware-level threat will need to watch that space.
For sure. And other things like new ghost calls using Zoom and Teams for command and control. SonicWall urging users to disable SSL VPN. Lots going on.
If you connect all these dots, these headlines, they really paint this picture of constant, rapid innovation on both sides, right? Offense and defense. The stakes are just incredibly high for businesses, for us as individuals, for nations. It's this complex, always shifting battleground. It's not static. It's always evolving, demands constant vigilance.
So after all that, what does this deep dive mean for you? Let's recap quickly. We saw the rise of intelligent adaptive threats like GenAI malware, PromptLock being a prime example. We saw that all operating systems, Mac, Linux included, are vulnerable and targeted. We saw that small businesses are bearing the brunt of attacks, a massive percentage.
Yeah, over 84%. Still staggering.
And we saw the persistent threat from sophisticated nation-state actors, alongside the constant need to patch old flaws and watch out for diverse new malware. Honestly, just doing what you did today, staying informed, listening to this, it's a really vital first step. This landscape changes so fast, proactive knowledge is absolutely key.
It really is. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on. Given this increasing sophistication, we're seeing AI malware like PromptLock that learns targeted exploits, hitting even supposedly secure systems like Apple devices. How do our security strategies, both personal and for our organizations, need to adapt? What new capabilities should you be looking for in your defenses to counter threats that learn, adapt, and target with this kind of precision? Something to think about as these threats inevitably keep evolving.
Great point. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep protecting your digital life. We'll catch you next time.
Reach out to us at jbyer.com for comments and questions. Follow us at Byer Company on social media, and if you'd be so kind, please rate and review us in your podcast app.